Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/Nerdery and Murdery. That's audibletrial.com/Nerdery and Murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/Nerdery and Murdery. That's betterhelp.com/Nerdery and Murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
I figured if we had nothing to say to each other, he would get bored, go away. But instead, he uses it as an excuse to put his testicles all over me.
Excuse me?
You know, like octopus testicles.
Oh, tentacles. NT, tentacles. Big difference. Welcome to episode 136 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Big 136. I'm Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows, the good, the bad, and the up and the down, the nerd and the murd. Oh, man. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather today, but try to get over this. Oh, man, tired. We've been going back and watching Daredevil.
Oh, the Netflix series, Daredevil?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
so
my
good,
God,
so
it's good.
So good, but we got through seasons 1 and 2, and then started on 3, and then I'm like, wait a minute, we're missing something here, because the way 3 started, so we figured out we had to go back, and now we're in Jessica Jones, which, man, David Tennant is so good as Kilgrave.
Yes.
Oh my God, he's so good. He's so thoroughly evil.
Oh, man, I liked all of those series that they did.
Well, I know I tried at one point to get into Iron Fist, and I didn't like it. And I don't think anybody liked Iron Fist.
No.
But to get into season 3 of Daredevil, you really have to get through Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. Probably have to get through Iron Fist, but I don't know if I can take it. And you have to get through Defenders. So
yeah.
we're going back and getting through all that. So we have a ton of shit to watch right now.
Yeah, and don't forget the Punisher.
Yeah, we got to get the Punisher in too. So yeah.
As much as I love Thomas Jane as the Punisher, I love uh,
John
uh
Bernthal.
yeah, John Bernthal. I can remember. I
Yeah.
remember his last name. I couldn't remember his name. I was like,
Yeah,
Aaron Bernthal? That's right.
he's really good. So we'll get through all of those. I've been seeing a lot of videos on the Lincoln Lawyer too. That looks really good.
The movie?
No, the TV series.
They did a series for the Lincoln Lawyer?
Yep.
Huh.
And the
I meant to check that out.
the videos I've watched have been really good. So may have to get into that too. So what are you up to?
Oh, not much. They're still doing construction on the house, but it's actually
I lost you there. No, you're completely froze up. There we go. Lost you for a minute. There, you're back. Okay. So sorry, construction on the house.
yes, we have construction on the house. I'm gonna go ahead and switch to another Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're there. Yeah, we've got construction on the house.
Sorry, I
all
lost
the
you.
way into the house.
Sorry, I lost you again. Construction on the house. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we no longer have a goblin tunnel underneath the house. Yeah, 4 foot by 4 foot, all the way from one side of the house to the other, following the pipes.
Yeah.
And I found out why we have such a hard time growing anything here. It's because our subsoil is sand and clay.
Nice.
It looks like concrete.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Oh, hey, I meant to tell you, saving it for the show. I finally watched Slammin' Salmon.
Funny, right?
Yeah, it is in points. It was funny enough to watch. It is not as funny as Waiting.
Oh my God, I love the guy, the waiter who kept whitening his teeth and talks about getting a couple of Smirnoff ices and hitting up the ladies. It was like, dude, I know like 10 guys just like
I didn't find it as funny as Waiting. I think Waiting is a better restaurant movie, but Slammin' Salmon was okay. It was just I don't know. It was a little over the top. I like Waiting so much because it Waiting really shows what it's like to work in a chain restaurant.
Yes.
But Slammin' Salmon not as much. It was a little too over the top and everything. There was some stuff in there that definitely happens in restaurants, but I just didn't think as good as Waiting. So just my 2 cents on that, since we've talked about that before.
Yes.
So anyway, with that, I'll let you take over on the nerdery side of the house.
Excellent. Today we're going to talk about Savage Steve Holland.
Awesome. And I've watched 2 of the 3 movies you're talking about. The third one I couldn't get anywhere. There was a subscription service I could have subscribed to get it. I'm like, no, I'm not getting
for one movie. Yeah, it'll be out. It was out recently. I want to say as recently as like 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't watch it, so it's been years since I've seen it. But I think it'll probably pop back up. It usually does. It's a lot of these movies are like that.
Yeah, Better Off Dead I've watched recently. So yeah. That's why it was my idea for you to cover Savage Steve Holland, because I really I love Better Off Dead, but
Better Off Dead's great.
But go ahead.
Okay, so Savage Steve Holland was born in 1960. He's an American writer, cartoonist, producer, voice actor, animator, and film director. He wrote and directed the films Better Off Dead, One Crazy Summer, both starring John Cusack. He also directed the film How I Got Into College and animated the whammy on the game show Pressure Luck. He later went on to create. Yeah, that's all Savage Steve Holland got. Next time you watch some old Pressure Luck, look at the whammies. It's like, oh, that's Savage Steve. It's obviously, but you gotta kind of put 2 and 2 together.
I always wondered if Savage Steve Holland was the one that did dadgummit, Big Bang Theory, because there's a Steve Holland that produces it, but it's apparently not the same person.
No, that's yeah. He usually he usually goes by the nom de pin Savage Steve Holland, probably to differentiate himself from the other Steve Hollands out
Yeah.
there. Um, he later went on to create and produce Eat the Cat, which we'll talk about today a little bit. The Terrible Thunder Lizards for Fox Kids. He now manages his own studio, Savage Studios Limited, and directs shows for Disney Channel and Nickelodeon. He does a lot of kids shows now.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff that my kids were into when they were younger, Double Rush and some of the other things like that. Um, but I want to say his golden age was, as far as animation and live action, was probably between 1985 and probably 1995, 2000. So we're going to be talking specifically about a couple of films and or three films in a cartoon series. So we're going to start with the film Better Off Dead. Better Off Dead is a 1985 American black comedy film written and directed by Savage Steve Holland. It stars John Cusack as a high school student, Lane Meyer, who becomes suicidal after his girlfriend breaks up with him shortly before Christmas. Initially met with mixed to negative reviews on release, it has since developed a cult following for its unconventionally surreal and absurdist humor.
God, why negative reviews? Why?
Critics do not like him.
Critics
they did
don't
the
like
same thing.
Or Savage Steve Holland.
Savage Steve Holland.
Huh.
Savage Steve Holland. They do not like Savage Steve Holland. They do the same thing with One Crazy Summer, which, again, I think it's because we're a little different in age. I love both those films. I like One Crazy Summer just a bit more.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this many times in the past because I think Better Off Dead is a better movie.
And I think the only reason that we see that is because you're a couple of years older than I am.
Maybe.
And I think that's what it is. I think that for some reason these films hit us in our early teens, and they struck a chord.
Well, because I've watched Better Off Dead hundreds of times.
Yeah,
I know
funny.
that movie backwards and forwards. Whereas One Crazy Summer, I've only seen a couple of times because I just didn't find it as funny.
You didn't find it as fun. You still liked it though, right?
Yeah, One Crazy Summer is fine. I just don't think it's as good as Better Off Dead, and by a long shot.
By a long shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. The critics do not like Savage Steve Holland, and I think they slept on it. It's like a lot of things, sometimes the critics will take a small comedy movie and poke fun at it to make themselves look pithy and urbane, without really sitting down and looking at what they've got. I'm not a fan of critics. I like more of a scholarly approach to them, which is why I love Joe Bob Briggs. Whether he likes it or he hates it, he does a scholarly approach on it and gives you the facts and the figures on it, which is kind of what I like to do.
And that's why when I look at Rotten Tomatoes, because I always look at Rotten Tomatoes on stuff, even though a lot of people will disagree with that, I always pay more attention to the audience reviews than the critics.
Yeah,
critics sometimes get a little too artsy fartsy, and I much prefer what the audience thinks about it.
Yeah. You know what? And there's a lot of times where the critics are just plain wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Titanic has never been a good film. It's not a good film. It's pretty. The acting's not bad, but the script was meh. Dialogue's okay, but the storyline itself is just not that interesting. And I think a lot of people are finally coming around on that. And the critics just rage. Oh my God, it's the greatest. It's got the best soundtrack. It's the greatest movie of all time. No, not even close.
God, I can't
I fell asleep in it.
I can't even remember his name now. And if somebody were to say it, I'd go, oh yeah, yep, that's the guy. But the Fort Worth Star-Telegram had a movie critic for years who was the worst critic. He was terrible. Gary
Cogill? Was it Gary Cogill?
That that doesn't ring. I know who Gary Cogill is, but I don't think that's
That's not him. Okay.
I may have to ask Keith. He may remember because I mean this was the guy who said E.T. was a bad movie.
Oh yeah, anything he said generally I liked.
Yes,
Anything he said he didn't like, I wanted to see.
Yes, exactly. I would rush out to see it if he panned the movie.
Yeah, I knew it. I know exactly who you're talking about. I can't think of his name either.
I'll look it up while you talk. See if I can find him.
All right. So, just a little background on the film. In the town of Greendale, in Northern California, high school student Lane Myers' two main interests are skiing and his girlfriend of 6 months, Beth. Shortly before Christmas, Beth dumps Lane for the handsome and popular captain of the ski team, Roy Stalin. Roy is an arrogant bully who unfairly rejects Lane at ski team tryouts. Beth also criticizes Lane's car, an old station wagon. Although Lane also owns a 1967 Camaro, he has not been able to get it running, and it sits in the driveway in a dilapidated state. Oh my God, David Ogden Stiers as the dad.
Yeah. He's brilliant.
Did you do the line? You do it better than I do.
Which one?
Where he talks about the car that's sitting in a cocoon on his lawn.
Oh, he says, so I can't get it exact, but it's Lane, you asked me to purchase this car because your girlfriend said it was, and I quote, tasty. And it has since sat in a cocoon on our lawn.
Oh my God. Thank you. Because it was tasty.
Because it was, and I quote, tasty.
Thank you so much. You captured that line. So Lane lives in a suburban development with his mother, Jenny, a ditzy housewife who routinely concocts creepy and creeping family meals. His genius little brother, Badger,
one meal which crawls away.
Yes, actually crawls off the plate. His genius little brother, Badger, who never speaks, but at the age of almost 8 can build powerful lasers and attack trashy women from how-to books. And his lawyer father, Al, who daily tries to stop the menacing paperboy, Johnny, from breaking his garage door windows with thrown newspapers. Furthermore, Johnny claims that
I want my $2.
The Myers owe him $2 for newspapers. And persistently hounds Lane, yelling, "I want my $2." Lane also regularly encounters 2 Korean drag racers who speak in Japanese, or one who speaks in Japanese and one who learned to speak English by listening to Howard Cosell and talks just like Howard Cosell.
It's also got
a portrait in moppishness.
It's also got Porky in it.
Yes, and Porky from from the film Porky's, who runs a burger joint that Lane works at.
For a while.
Yeah, until Porky throws him out. Literally throws him out. And of course Lane can't get past Beth's rejection. He also hangs out with his best friend, Charles DeMar. What's your name, cutie? Charles DeMar. Who, in lieu of not being able to get real drugs in their bodaciously small town, constantly inhales everyday substances like Jell-O, snow, and nitrous oxide from whipped cream cans.
Todd Camp. Todd Camp was that critic.
Yes, Todd Camp.
Finally found it. Todd Camp. Yes. No. I'm not. I'm wrong. Michael Price.
Michael Price.
Yep.
Okay. So, kids.
Sorry about that. Back
in the day in Fort Worth, if Michael Price said a movie wasn't any good, you went out and saw it because you knew you were going to love it.
Yes.
If Michael Price raved about the film, it was long and something your parents would like. And again, I like a good artistic endeavor. I like a good, gritty, solid, artsy-fartsy film every once in a while. But to discount the other work is, in my mind, simplistic. You know what I mean? Sometimes a movie is just good because it's funny. And Savage Steve Holland is funny. There's also this foreign exchange student in this film, who moves in across the street from Lane, who kind of helps him with his confidence. Um, it's one of those films that, especially if you saw it in your teens, it was it was life affirming. Um, Now parts of the film were shot in Alta Brighton and Snowbird in Utah. The Myers home is located at 1636 Virginia Avenue, Glendale, California. Across the street at 1633 Virginia is the home of the Smith family and the French exchange student Monique Junot. So they're actually on the same street. Lane's high school is Hollywood High School, located at 1521 North Highland Avenue in Los Angeles. Pig Burger was filmed at Sandy's Charburger. The restaurant has since gone out of business, but the building still sports the burger signage. The exterior of the school dance sequence was shot at Anderson W. Clark Magnet High School in La Crescenta, California. And the street on which Lane is consistently challenged by the Korean drag races is located near the foothills of Monrovia, California. Several other driver scenes were shot in the Los Angeles suburbs of Duarte and Sierra Madre. The hand-drawn animation of the movie was animated by Savage Steve Holland and his collaborator Bill Kopp, who would later work on him with One Crazy Summer and Eat the Cat. A dream sequence where hamburgers and fries come to life was produced in stop motion. According to an interview with Diane Franklin on the Retro Zest podcast, actor Yano Anaya, who played one of the Paperboy gang members, also looped all of the dialogue as Johnny the Paperboy. So the kid speaking wasn't actually speaking in the final film. Anaya also played Bully Grover Dill in A Christmas Story and young Michael Anthony in the music video for Van Halen's Hot for Teachers. So One Crazy Summer. How can I explain it in a way that makes sense? It's about the zeitgeist of the Gen X. There you go. This kid he's a great skier and he thinks he should be on the team, but he keeps getting booted out. His girlfriend dumps him, and in the process of looking to repair their relationship, he discovers more about himself. Yeah. And it's hysterically funny. Again, I can't say anything wrong about this film other than the critics slept on it, and they shouldn't have. Curtis Armstrong, of course, John Cusack, Beth, and I can't remember that actress's name. She was one of the kids that got killed in the first Friday or Nightmare on Elm Street.
Beth in One Crazy Summer? Yeah.
She's the first girl that got killed in Nightmare on Elm Street.
I'll have it here for you in a minute. Go ahead.
David Ogden Stiers, the cast is incredible, and they're just, he cast it with all character actors, and I think that really helps. I loved everybody in that movie. The Howard Cosell guy, that's Sato. I noticed it the last time I watched it. I was like, oh my God, that's Sato from Karate Kid 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're back on Better Off Dead. Sorry. I thought you said the One Crazy Summer. I was like, I don't remember.
Did I say One Crazy Summer?
Yeah, you did. I got very
It's because I'm staring at my notes and the next note is One Crazy Summer. Sorry.
I got very confused. Yeah. In Better Off Dead, Beth is dadgummit.
Yeah, I can't remember that actress's name. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'll have it. I'll have it here in just 1 second.
Well, I didn't put it down.
Amanda Wyss.
Yeah, Amanda. Yeah, Amanda Wyss.
Or WYSS. It might be Weiss.
Weiss. Yeah, Amanda Weiss. Yeah, she was real big in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
She did a bunch of teen movies. And she does the conventions a lot. So Savage Steve Holland releases this movie. It does okay in the theaters, not great. I think it made its money back and a little bit extra, but it's not successful, where this movie came to life, every kid in America rented it at the video store. It picked up by word of mouth. I mean, it was one of those films that we all watched. Did you see it at the theaters? You see it at somebody's house or your house?
I saw it at somebody's house.
Yeah, me too. The same with the next film we're going to talk about. So the very next year, Savage Steve Holland convinces Curtis Armstrong and John Cusack to come back and make another film in a similar vein. But instead of it being about skiing, it's about sailing. And takes place on the other side of the country in Martha's Vineyard.
Just to back up real quick, so Better Off Dead had a budget of $3.5 million and box office of $10.3 million.
Yeah, okay, so it was more successful than I thought it was.
Yeah,
but its video sales outstripped that by a large margin because that's where most everybody saw it that I know. The music in it is really good. There's some Van Halen. There's some original songs. It's just a great film. Can't recommend it more. The next film came out the very next year. That's One Crazy Summer. One Crazy Summer is a 1986 American romantic comedy film written and directed by Savage Steve Holland, and again starring John Cusack and Curtis Armstrong. It also had Demi Moore, Bobcat Goldthwait, Joel Murray, and Joe Flaherty.
Okay, you know what? And I'm going to say this, and maybe I'm going to be unpopular with this, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I think you'll disagree with what I say. Mm-hmm. Demi Moore overrated.
I don't disagree at all.
Except in St. Elmo's Fire. I thought she was great in St. Elmo's.
Honestly, you could have cast that. Yeah. You could have cast her with probably a dozen other brunettes at the time.
I thought she was great. She was blonde in St. Elmo's Fire.
Was she blonde in St. Elmo's Fire?
Yep.
Mare Winningham in St. Elmo's Fire? Outstanding.
Yeah, she's great.
She was so good in that film. Andy McDowell was great in that. It's just clueless as to what was going on. Ali Sheedy was great in that.
Mm-hmm.
God, Rob Lowe's.
But anyway, Demi Moore, I think.
Demi Moore, and I agree. I think Demi Moore's overrated. And I don't think she took anything away from. Well, maybe she could have been better. I think if they'd have had a better actress, One Crazy Summer may have hit on more cylinders. But there were so many other people around her that were so good in the roles that they had. It kind of made up for her not being that great. But yeah, I agree. I think she's that great. So, and the story is Hoops McCann, a recent high school graduate, fails to get a basketball scholarship, disappointing his parents. He hopes to be admitted to the Rhode Island School of Design and must write and illustrate a love story for his application. He joins his friends, siblings George and Squid Calamari to spend the summer on the island of Nantucket, Massachusetts. En route, they pick up a young rock singer named Cassandra Eldridge, who is pursued by a motorcycle gang at the time. Once on the island, Hoops and George, along with twin brothers Egg and Clay Stork, and outcast Akak Raymond, must help Cassandra save her grandfather's house from the greedy Beckerstead family, led by the callous Aguila. Along the way, Hoops must find a way to write his cartoon love story. Hoops runs afoul of Teddy Beckerstead and his neglected girlfriend, Cookie. She secretly offers Hoops a date and is persuaded to go out with her, even though he has promised to appear at Cassandra's first music performance, which turns out to be sparsely attended. Hoops and Cookie go to a drive-in that night where Teddy's friend Ty sees them and notifies Teddy. Ty, played by Jeremy Piven. Meanwhile, Egg gets stuck in a Godzilla costume and causes havoc at Beckerstead's promotional party for the Beckerstead Estates, which would be located at the spot of Cassandra's grandfather's house. Hoops, George, Egg, Akak run into Teddy and his friends. As Teddy threatens them, Cassandra appears and offers an impromptu basketball challenge between him and Hoops. Teddy dominates and Hoops fails. After spraying Teddy and his friends with mace, Cassandra is upset that Hoops did not appear for a performance and lied that he was a good basketball player. Several locations on Cape Cod, Massachusetts were used for the film. St. Pope John Paul II High School, Hyannis West Elementary School, Woods Hole, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Steamship Authority ferry docks in Woods Hole, where the characters board the ferry and the motorcycle gang leader jumps his motorcycle into the water. The gas station bathroom scene was shot at a station built in the MBL Club in Woods Hole. The inside of General Raymond's Army Navy store is Mass Bay Company, located at 595 Main Street, Hyannis, Massachusetts. The Stork Brothers gas station is located at 1098 Main Street in Dennis, Massachusetts. Hoops McCann is named after the protagonist in Steely Dan's song Glamour Professional from the Gaucho album, who was introduced as a basketball aficionado. The animation of the film was directed by Bill Kopp, who previously worked with Savage Steve Holland on Better Off Dead and will later work with him on Eat the Cat. Two animators who worked on the film, David Silverman and Wes Archer, would later be directors on The Simpsons and would animate Simpson shorts for the Tracy Ullman Show with Kopp. Savage Steve Holland was reportedly upset with Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert's criticism of his earlier film, Better Off Dead, which led to the gag about the two bunnies that get blown up at the end of the movie who resemble the movie critics. So, one crazy summer. Yes, the Godzilla bit is really funny. That's not the best part of the movie. It is funny though. It's why I wanted to see the movie, because I saw a preview for it. Bobcat Goldthwait stomping through in a Godzilla suit after someone's thrown a cigar in the top of it and he can't get out, and he's walking through this model of this town that they want to build on Nantucket. So Hoops McCann's father was a famous basketball player, which is why his name is Hoops. Hoops can't play basketball and is a cartoonist instead. He keeps trying to write this animated story for his entry into the design. So in the film, it will intersperse with these bits of animation where he's trying to write the story about the happy rhino or the lonely rhino and the funny bunnies. It's great. The interspersing of the animated scenes are perfectly placed, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like this movie because there's a little more animation in it than there is in Better Off Dead. Although Better Off Dead does have some animation, because Savage Steve Holland started out as an animator. He just started directing live action. He just kind of segued into that, but I think he did Kirby Buckets, which was another kids show in the teens that involved animation joining real life. So it's kind of that sort of thing. That's kind of what he does, which is why I think I like him so much. But yeah, One Crazy Summer, I love that film. But I would agree with Geoffrey. Demi Moore is not great in that film.
Nope.
She could be better. Everybody else though is incredible. Joe Flaherty. Oh my God, the actor Niedermeyer.
Mm-hmm.
Niedermeyer from Animal House is in it. He plays old man Beckerstead. Teddy, that actor went on to do a bunch of television work. He was in Major Dad as the Major's attaché. I loved that actor. I love that actor in that role and in the Major Dad role. I haven't seen him in, like I said, he's done TV. He's kind of a big, overbuilt guy. Cusack also wanted to bring all of his friends from Chicago with him, which is why Jeremy Piven's in the film, plus a couple of other guys you will later on see in Say Anything, which is another film that Cusack did. Not with Savage Steve Holland, but with another director instead. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank today. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. They're up there. They're just not facts filed. Um, but yeah, I love What Crazy Summer. I think I think I like the idea of them being on Nantucket instead because it shows, well, and Better Off Dead too. It also shows that, back then, even though it was at the beach, it was still a middle class sort of thing to do up on the mountain. Middle class people used to go skiing as well. I mean, they still do, but it's a lot less. Um, I think Savage Steve Holland kind of put a spotlight on that. Hey, when people are doing well, they ski. They go to Nantucket, they hang out, they spend the summer doing stuff. And it was awesome. The next film is How I Got Into College. Now, this is one that Geoffrey hasn't seen. I saw it years ago. I have seen it in the last few years. Um, so I may have to refer to my notes a little bit more. How I Got Into College is a 1989 American romantic comedy film directed by Savage Steve Holland, starring Anthony Edwards, Corey Parker, and Laura Flynn Boyle, and produced and released by 20th Century Fox. This is the film debut of eventual voice actor Tom Kenny, who would become best known as the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants. The story follows two high school seniors from Michigan on their quest to get into Ramsey College, a small college in Pennsylvania. Popular and talented Jessica, unnoticed underachiever Marlon. Jessica wants to break free of both her high school image and her family's near maniacal devotion to the University of Michigan, while Marlon simply wants to go to whatever college Jessica's going to because he's completely in love with her. Jessica and Marlon go from being in completely different orbits to slowly becoming friends and then romantic interests for each other. The battle lines at Ramsey are drawn between a priggish administrator named Leo, who wants to make SAT scores the entire arbiter of who gets in, and good-hearted Ramsey alums turned admissions officers Kip and Nina, who feel the SAT scores are important, but not the whole or even the main story behind any applicant. Side stories involve two African-American high school seniors in Detroit, one a natural leader whose father died when she was young, the other a very talented football player whose desire to expand his intellectual horizons is ignored by everyone. Marlon's college-eschewed best friend, Oliver, a conniving pair of untalented SAT tutors, in the battle between Leo, Kip, Nina, and you get a great class of students. They want to get a great class of students at Ramsey. Jan Eliasberg started directing, but was fired 5 days into filming and replaced with Savage Steve Holland. Production on the film commenced in February of 1988. Actress Laura Flynn Boyle left production briefly in March of 1988 to film reshoots for the ending of Poltergeist 3. The film was a box office bomb, making just $651,000 for its opening weekend from 743 theaters. And it ended its run with only 1.6 million domestically.
Yeah, it didn't even make its budget of 10 million.
No, it didn't. It didn't. But strangely enough, the critics liked How I Got Into College more than One Crazy Summer or Better Off Dead. They didn't laud it, but they liked it more because they finally got the absurdist humor. And he really pulls out the stops with the absurdist humor here. I think because they had hired that first director, and that director had started setting up the shots and everything, and nobody liked this director. The producers didn't like the way that director was going, so they was like, hey, we want this to be more absurdist. So they called in Savage Steve Holland, and he, of course, Savage Steve Holland's like, you want absurdist? Let's do this. And it's crazy. This kid trying to get through SATs, it almost nightmarish. Another thing about his live action films, Taylor Negron, the actor, shows up in all of them as a postman. A very creepy postman. And you show up at the door and go, I've got some really great news for you. You may already be a winner of $50,000. It's just great. He's in all three of these films. It's
Yeah, I remember him from Better Off Dead. He's also in another movie I've talked about before, which is one that a lot of people don't remember, which is really actually very funny, is Young Doctors in Love.
Young Doctors in Love. We should do Young Doctors in Love.
Yeah, that's a very funny film. Well, if we're going to do that, honestly, I would say, uh, hold on, we should cover Michael McKean
Yes.
because
Yes.
he's brilliant. He's in that movie, and I think we could cover several of his stuff because he's so good.
Oh my God, he's brilliant. And he's such a great writer, too. That's what people don't realize, that Michael McKean and his former writing partner, oh my God, Squiggy, David.
David,
Landers. David Landers.
yes.
Michael McKean and David Landers were writing partners for years. All of that Lenny and Squiggy stuff they did for Laverne and Shirley, they wrote all of it.
Yes.
It's like, no, we don't need to be main characters. We need to come in and say something dumb and then leave. We'll write it for you. And that's what they did. And they started out as just doing that. And eventually the show kind of spun off after that. But yeah, that whole bit was them just being goofy. I love David Landers and Michael McKean, and Michael McKean by himself too.
Mm-hmm.
They're just brilliant. And he's able to elevate just about everything he does. Even some of the things you think, oh, there's not much for him to work with here. Oh, he'll find it. The next thing I want to talk about, really quickly, is a live action children's show called The New Adventures of Beans Baxter. It's an adventure comedy television series that aired in 1987 on the Fox television network. It was created by Savage Steve Holland, who also wrote and directed most of the 17 episodes. The title character was portrayed by Jonathan Ward, who won a Best Young Actors starring in a new television comedy series Young Artist Award for the role. The show revolves around a spy activities of Benjamin Beans Baxter Jr., a Kansas teenager who has just moved with his parents and younger brother to Washington, D.C. as part of his father's assumed reassignment as an employee of the U.S. Postal Service. His dad does some work for the Postal Service. Beans witnesses his father's apparent assassination and the explosion of a bomb planted in Benjamin Sr.'s postal freighter. He was recruited by the mysterious number 2, Jerry Westerman. Number 2 was an officer and presumably the deputy director of the network, a CIA-style spy agency. Beans thus learned that his father was actually an agent of the network and that the older Baxter's Postal Service employment was cover assignment. The network's main delivery of assignments for its agents was a system similar to what was seen in spy comedy film Get Smart in the 1960s. The main nemesis of the network was a terror organization that called itself Ugly, UGLI, sorry. The Underground Government Liberation Intergroup, which was headed by the professional terrorist called Mr. Sue, played by Kurtwood Smith, and his second in command, Taylor Negron, again. The network, however, considered Beans himself strictly a placeholder agent and was only allowed him to work in its dangerous service till his father could be found and freed. Viewers are warned as a result to expect to see little of Benjamin Sr., since his prime purpose was to stay lost and trapped so the series might continue. Beans Sr. was played by Roy Scheider. Quite well, too, I might add. For the little you got to see him. Additional episodes were intended to show Beans' mother, Susan, wrongly believing herself to be a widow and re-entering the dating scene. This activity on her part was to have led to complications for Beans, who knew as she did not, that his dad was still alive. Moreover, for all Beans or Susan knew, any of the suitors might have been ugly terrorists. The series was canceled before some of those developments could take place. Unfortunately, this show was actually really, really good. It just didn't get half a chance. I think they only did like 20 episodes altogether, and they were planning on like a 3-year run. Do you remember Beans Baxter at all?
No.
It was pretty good. It was a kid show. And honestly, I think I was in high school when it came out. I thought it was pretty funny. It was one of those things I'd catch on, I think it was on Saturday mornings. But it was like late, like 11 o'clock. before going out and hitting the town. But yeah, I kind of liked it. I didn't catch it every week, but and it ran in reruns for a while on like 21. It was pretty good. It was what he was doing when he got pulled off of this to go direct How I Got Into College and made that. And then he got into doing more children's shows because of Beans Baxter, because a lot of people really liked what he'd done there, but Fox is canceling stuff left and right. So it was at this time that him and Kopp kind of developed Eat the Cat. It was an animated series created by Savage Steve Holland and Bill Kopp, produced by Fox Kids and Savage Studios with animation by Nelvana. Broadcast from 92 to 97 on Fox's former Saturday morning children's block, Fox Kids. It also aired in Canada on YTV from 92 to 98. Eek the Cat revolves around the misadventures of a jolly purple cat named Eek, who lives in a fictional city of Metropolis. His motto is, "It never hurts to help," an attitude that generally gets him into trouble, from which much of the physical and visual humor of the show is derived. Initially, most of the humor centered around Eek's various injuries during his attempts to help and save other characters. But over the course of the series, a far wider variety of humor is utilized, and Eek generally has the capacity to unintentionally deal as much, if not more, pain to other characters, mainly Sharky the Shark Dog, as he undergoes himself. Other characters include Eek's human family, with whom he is unable to communicate via spoken language, Sharky the Shark Dog, who despises Eek, something the cat is most of the time oblivious to, and Eek's girlfriend, Annabelle, who he sees as beautiful despite other characters commenting on her weight. The show features a guitar riff, intro, slapstick humor, and pop culture references. Shows vary from standard cartoon fare to film spoofs such as Apocalypse Now and Clockwork Orange. During the second season, a special musical episode titled Quadropedia aired. The first Christmas episode was written almost entirely in rhyme. The show featured many cameos by celebrities, some of whom came back from several episodes. So Sharky the Shark Dog is a dog and a shark. It's like a Chihuahua mixed with like a bull shark. I don't know why. It's a cartoon, Why ask why? But yeah, I really love to Eat the Cat. I was watching Eat the Cat in my 20s, so I thought it was hysterical. I like to catch it in the afternoons when I got a chance. It was on for like 5 years too, and I want to say it ran in syndication for years after that. And then Savage Steve Holland made a deal with Nickelodeon to do some of their shows, as well as Cartoon Network. Not so much animation anymore as live action kids shows. They're really good, but they weren't written for me. So, my kids liked some of them. But the stuff we really wanted to talk about today was Better Off Dead, One Crazy Summer, How I Got College, Beans Baxter, and Eat the Cat. But yeah, Steve Holland was an incredible animator, and a great director, but he is really absurdist. Much in the same way that Bill Kristofsky is, who did Ren and Stimpy. But Bill Kristofsky was lauded for it, and Savage Steve Holland was kind of picked on for it. And I think it's because Kristofsky started a couple of years after, and people were more ready for it.
Maybe. I mean, if you watch One Crazy Summer and Better Off Dead, you're absolutely right. It is absurdist comedy because
but it's good absurdist comedy.
Absurd situations that happen. It's outstanding comedy. It's very, very funny, but it is absolutely absurd.
Oh yeah,
situations. So,
but yeah, that's about it for Savage Steve Holland.
Cool. I appreciate that. I think y'all should get out and watch that stuff. See what you think about it. That does remind me. I will remind our listeners. I almost said viewers. Well, we have viewers too.
Yeah.
Our listeners as well. We are asking for submissions for your favorite laugh out loud movies. We had done our list, and we've gotten some submissions already.
Yes.
Once we have a good complete list, we will be putting together an episode, watch your movies, and give our reviews of them as well. So just a reminder to our listeners.
Yeah, hit us up. Tell us what you want us to see, and we'll review them and tell you what we think.
Awesome.
Try to do some deep dives on them too.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. And with that, we'll step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off Wikipedia, the Irish Mirror, and the Sun. And this is the story of the Scissor Sisters.
The Scissor Sisters?
Yeah. And I'm going to admit, I don't get why they're called this, but you'll see as we go on. I never really found any definitive evidence why they were called the Scissor Sisters. It doesn't make any sense to me with what they did. So,
yeah, there was a kind of a crazy alt band back in the 90s to early 2000s called Scissor Sisters. This is probably who they're named after.
Could be. Well, Linda and Charlotte Mulhall, also called the Scissor Sisters by the media, were sisters from Dublin, Ireland, who killed and dismembered their mother's boyfriend, Farah Swale Noor, in March of 2005. Noor was killed with a Stanley knife wielded by Charlotte and struck with a hammer by Linda following a confrontation with the sisters and their mother, Kathleen Mulhall.
So not scissors.
Not scissors. That's why
I'm
very confused here. His head and penis were sliced off and the rest of his corpse dismembered and dumped in the Royal Canal in Dublin, where a piece of his leg, still wearing a sock, was spotted floating near Croke Park 10 days later. The subsequent manhunt and trial in October of 2006 attracted intense media attention as the details of the crime slowly emerged. The sisters and their mother were arrested but released until Linda confessed to involvement in the crime. Kathleen Mulhall left the country to live in England. When Charlotte and Linda were charged with murder in December of 2005, their father, John Mulhall, hanged himself in Phoenix Park. And this is where I got confused. Because of the method used in Noor's killing, the Mulhalls were dubbed the Scissor Sisters by the media. I don't understand that. It was with a knife and a hammer. Where's the scissors here?
Maybe they used scissors to cut him up?
No, there's nothing in here anywhere that had anything to do with scissors.
Okay.
So that's why it's weird. I don't know. Huh. I don't know. Justice Paul Carney, who presided over the trial, said during sentencing that it was the most grotesque killing that has occurred in my professional lifetime. A Gardaí superintendent, which Gardaí is the Irish dadgummit, is the Irish police. It's the Irish Republic Police Force.
Yes.
He said, quote, "No human deserves to be murdered the way Noor was by the Scissor Sisters." Charlotte Mulhall was given a mandatory life sentence, and Linda was given a 15-year sentence for manslaughter, with both being sent to Mountjoy Women's Prison in Dublin. Noor's head and penis were never recovered, although Linda later admitted they had put the head in rubbish bins around Phoenix Park.
Wow.
It was also thought that they carried the head by bus to Talhat, somewhere in Ireland.
Yeah.
And burned it.
It's Gaelic, man. It's okay.
Yeah. And burned it in a field, with Linda returning later to dig it up, carry it to another field using her son's school bag, smash it further with a hammer, and then bury it again.
Huh.
Linda attracted further media attention when she slit her wrist and was sectioned, involuntarily hospitalized. Charlotte also attracted media attention when a photograph of her holding a knife to a male prisoner's throat was published. That action resulted in increased security presence in all Irish prisons, and Charlotte was moved from Mountjoy to Limerick prison. Kathleen Mulhall voluntarily returned to Ireland in February 2008 and faced several charges. She pleaded guilty to helping clean up the crime scene to conceal evidence and was sentenced to 5 years in prison in May of 2009. The case did result in several books being written and has been examined in at least one television series. It was said by the Irish Independent's legal affairs correspondent, Dearbhale MacDonald, to have, quote, fueled fears of ritual killings in Ireland.
Huh.
The Mulhalls were from Kilcare Gardens and were working in Talhat. We'll go with that. Talhat, south of Dublin.
Okay.
Their parents, John and Kathleen, raised a family of 3 boys and 3 girls. Kathleen was originally Kathleen Ward before she got married and was from the traveling community. I guess gypsies?
Yeah, Irish gypsies. Travelers. Well, gypsies is not a good word, but yeah, travelers.
Right. Right. Yeah. I guess I've heard that's not a good term now. So
Yeah, sorry.
that's all right.
Yeah, no,
I'm
no, no.
I'm sorry if I said a bad word.
well, that's us. It's like we're also talking about the Irish intention. We don't live there. We're not really sure what's.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
John Mulhall allegedly abused Kathleen, and their marriage broke down and Kathleen entered into a relationship with Farah Swaleh Noor in 2002, and Noor also allegedly abused Kathleen. Linda was 30 years old at the time of the killing. She was unemployed, had left school early, and had 4 children. The relationship with the father of her children broke up, and she got into another relationship with an individual called Wayne Kinsella, who subsequently abused them, and in one case, beating the children with an electric flex. The abuse was later investigated, and the children were taken into care by the social services, while Wayne Kinsella served a 7-year prison sentence for his cruelty to the children. Linda Mulhall, meanwhile, had a history of alcohol abuse, and suffered from an addiction to heroin, and she had one previous conviction in 1993 for larceny. Charlotte was 21 years old when the killings took place, and like her sister, she had a history of drug and alcohol abuse. She had a number of previous minor convictions for criminal damage and public order offenses, and was charged with criminal damage and sentencing under the Probation Act in 2005. And she was also involved in prostitution. During their trial, the Gardaí, again, the National Police Force of the Republic of Ireland, described the girls as upbringing as troubled and tough. Tough. Man, I can't talk today. Farah Swaleh Noor was 40 years old at the time of his death. He had arrived in Ireland in December of 96, claiming to be a Somali called Sheila Salim, whose family had been killed in Mogadishu during the Somali Civil War. Subsequent investigations revealed he was in fact a Kenyan, and his family was still alive. The Department of Justice, Equality, and Law Reform ordered that he be deported, but he appealed and was granted Irish citizenship in March of 1999 because he had become a father of an Irish-born child. He had 4 previous convictions for offenses including intoxication, threatening and abusive behavior, and assault. And in 1997, he raped a mentally disabled 16-year-old Chinese girl who later gave birth to a son.
Ireland's main exports are alcoholism and sadness.
I know, right? 2 other women had children by him, and both described him as being described having been raped by him. Noor had faced 8 charges of disorder and assault, one involving a sexual assault in which a knife was found at the scene by the Gardaí. He was convicted on 3 occasions, but never served time in jail. Noor lived in a number of areas in Dublin, including, I'm not going to get these, Dunlowgare and Furhouse, as well as the inner city before moving in with Kathleen Mulhall. The Gardaí described him as being particularly violent towards women. Noor was known to be violent towards Kathleen, and she ended up in the hospital several times, including for fractured ribs. The killing took place at a flat Kathleen was renting in a house on Richmond Cottages, Summerhill, on March 20th, 2005. This was on the public holiday of St. Patrick's weekend. On the day of the killings, Linda, Charlotte, and their mother and Noor had been drinking heavily in Dublin city centre. They returned to Kathleen's flat, where the woman then took ecstasy, but Noor didn't want to take any of the drug. But Kathleen Mulhall crushed a tablet into his drink, so they were all, quote, on the same buzz. Linda and Noor were sitting on a 2-seater couch with Charlotte sitting on the arm when Noor started touching Linda in a sexual way. He spoke into her ear, put his arms around her waist and refused to let her go. Kathleen then started screaming at him, and an argument took place where Kathleen was alleged to have instructed them to, quote, just kill him for me. Charlotte then picked up a Stanley knife and struck Noor across his throat, inflicting a wound that sent him to the ground. Linda then picked up a hammer and hit him on the head a number of times. Their mother did look on, but did not participate. Nora was stabbed at least 20 times. Forensic criminologist Jane Monckton-Smith described this as overkill on the Sky documentary series Ireland's Most Evil Killers. And she added, quote, "It's gratuitous. There's not many times that you will see this level of rage coming from a woman. The fact that it was two women and the fact that it was rage-filled and so violent makes this highly unusual." Linda and Charlotte then dragged Nora's corpse into the bathroom where they began to dismember the remains, and they called their dad John for help. He came around, but when he saw what they had done, he refused to get involved. Nora's head, limbs, and penis were severed using a kitchen knife and a hammer. Again, there's no scissor here.
No scissors.
They put towels over his legs to stem the flow of blood, and the dismemberment took a number of hours, and the body parts were placed in black plastic bags in a sports bag before being disposed of in the Royal Canal. This took the three women several trips. They decided not to throw the head in to prevent identification. The head was then brought by bus to Tallaght, where they walked through the Square Shopping Center to Sean Walsh Memorial Park, and then they even stopped to have breakfast with the head in the bag.
Yuck.
They then walked to where Charlotte dug a hole with a knife to bury the head. Kathleen threw the knives and the hammer into a nearby pond. And then a number of days later, Linda allegedly returned to the park and dug up the head. Using her son's school bag, she transferred it to a field in the Kilnarden estate, Tallaght, where she broke it up with a hammer before burying it again. The killing only came to light 10 days later when Nora's leg, with a sock on the end, was seen floating in the canal a few hundred yards from Croke Park. Gardaí sub-aqua divers retrieved most of the rest of the body in 7 parts. They then traced his identity.
More rocks.
Yeah. They then traced his identity through media appeals. Nora was only identified when someone recognized a T-shirt on the recovered torso. The key witness, a Somali man who was the first to connect the missing Nora with the 3 Mulhall women, was paid a, quote, substantial reward by Crime Stoppers. And again, Nora's head and penis were never found.
Yeah.
The sisters and their parents were arrested in August, but denied any knowledge of the killing. Kathleen told Gardaí that Nora was alive, and the 3 sisters denied knowing anything. And the sisters denied knowing anything, not 3, sorry. But when it looked like the cops might arrest their mother, 2 of the Mulhall sons came forward. Both James and John Mulhall Jr. were behind bars at the time, James for dangerous driving, which caused the man's death, while John Jr. was on remand for being a passenger in a stolen car. The brothers told the officers that their mother Kathleen came to visit them and had told them the truth, but there was not enough evidence to press charges until August 19th, when 21-year-old Linda confessed. Gardaí took voluntary statements from her at her home in Tallaght in August of 2005, and until this, the Gardaí had been making very limited progress on the case. Despite all this, Charlotte claimed it was her mother who killed Nora. She alleged they came home and found him dead, so they dismembered the body. When Gardaí searched the Mulholland flat in Summerhill, they found bloodstains that were later confirmed to match Nora's DNA. And then after Linda's confession, Kathleen fled the country in September of 2005, and Gardaí were unable to locate her again until January of 2008 when she was living in England. Linda and Charlotte were both charged with murder and pleaded not guilty in the Central Criminal Court. Their trial took place in October of 2006, with Linda being found guilty of manslaughter, while her sister Charlotte was found guilty of the murder of Nora. Linda's jury accepted her defense of provocation. Charlotte was given the mandatory life sentence, and Linda was given a 15-year sentence for manslaughter. The judge argued that Linda, a heroin addict, had initially tried to halt the trial by refusing to take methadone. Leave to appeal was refused for both sentences. Linda appealed the severity of her sentence on the grounds that it was passed without psychiatric and probation reports. This appeal failed, with the Court of Criminal Appeal finding the sentence to be appropriate. Charlotte requested to leave to appeal her conviction on the grounds that Justice Carney had put pressure on the jury to reach a verdict, even though the foreman had indicated they were deadlocked. This failed on the grounds that the defense did not raise objections to the comments during the trial, and the fact that the jury was not affected by any alleged undue pressure to reach a verdict. Kathleen voluntarily returned to Ireland in February of 2008, and among other offenses was charged with 2 counts of giving false information to Gardaí about Noor's whereabouts and withholding information which she knew or believed would be assistance in prosecuting her daughters for the Noor murder. She was also charged with impeding an arrest in the murder investigation. She pleaded guilty to helping clean up the crime scene to conceal evidence, and then Kathleen was sentenced to 5 years in prison in May of 2009. As I'd said earlier, the girl's father, John Mulhall, killed himself in December of 2005 after learning his daughters had been charged with murder, but he is not believed to have been involved in the killings.
He left, he left to avoid,
Mm-hmm.
And then he killed himself when his daughters went away. That makes sense.
While in prison, Linda turned to alcohol and slashed her arms, causing her to spend over a week in a psychiatric hospital. In April of 2009, she claimed to fellow inmates that she had in fact smashed Noor's head and distributed the fragments in rubbish bins in Phoenix Park. This first disclosure of where Noor's head had ended up was referring to as, quote, the final secret of the Scissor Sisters by Cormac Looney in the Evening Herald. Charlotte caused a further controversy in 2008 when photographs of her holding a knife to the throat of a male prisoner in Mountjoy Prison were leaked to the press, as I talked about before. The girl's brother, James Mulhall, pleaded guilty to the robbery of 2 prostitutes, claiming he robbed the women to support his own 6 children and his sister Linda's 4 children, whom he took on after she was jailed. The case received a high amount of attention due to the grotesque and macabre nature of the crime. Again, I don't know why. Here, talking about that rock group. This led to the sisters being dubbed the Scissor Sisters by the media after the pop group from New York.
Okay.
Again, I'm not understanding the name. I even did look up the band in my notes trying to find the connection, but I still couldn't. So,
maybe it's because they cut him up
like
a pair of scissors.
Maybe.
Yeah, my God, some sort of Irish newspaper writer's trying to be freaking James Joyce.
Several books were written on the circumstances surrounding the death of Noor. The Torso in the Canal by John Mooney and the Irish Scissor Sisters by Mike McCaffrey. The 2009 RTE television series Killers featured the Mulhall sisters. Linda was released in 2018 after serving over 12 years of her 15-year sentence. She was tracked down in 2018 by the Sunday World's Eugene Masterson to her new home in Coquille-Dare, and she told him she wanted to get on with her life and didn't want to comment further. Charlotte, however, was still in prison as of 2023, but there are reports that she may, however, be released soon of good behavior.
Okay.
And that is the story of the Scissor Sisters.
The Scissor Sisters.
Yeah.
Okay. So this guy is a
piece of shit.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Did he deserve to be stabbed to death? I don't know. What was he doing when he got stabbed? Maybe if they'd have just cut him and hit him to make him stop and then called the police, none of this would have happened.
Well, was he stabbed to death or was he beaten to death? Because it really wasn't clear on that. He was stabbed over 20 times, but then he was beaten over the head with a hammer. So
yeah, I mean, he was in the process of assaulting someone there.
Yeah.
Maybe if they'd have just, whoa, okay, stop. It's like, oh no, we're going to get caught and charged with murder. Let's dismember him and put him in the canal.
I don't know. What I kind of find interesting about this case is everybody in it were pieces of shit.
Yeah.
They really none of them had any good redeeming value. I don't think it deserved murder, but I don't think any of them had a good redeeming value. So
yes, and again to point out, Ireland's 2 main exports: alcoholism and sadness. I'm sure that's going to win us a lot of Irish fans.
Oh,
I mean, just a lot.
I'm sure. All right, thanks for taking that trip with me. That'll take us to the end of another recording week. As always, you can find more information about us on our website, nerderymurdery.com. That's our hub for everything. You'll find links to what we talked about today, as well as pictures that go along with it. You'll also find a link to our YouTube page, which Zig so often updates.
which I have included several scenes from Better Off Dead, One Crazy Summer, and How I Got Into College.
Awesome.
The clearest I could find. As a matter of fact, I want to say One Crazy Summer, I was able to get the whole film too. But I definitely got some good Better Off Dead scenes. The hamburger animated scene is probably hands down some of the best animated stuff going on in that movie too.
Yeah.
I know that's it.
You'll also find the link to our merchandise page where if you wish to show off your Nerdery and Murdery fandom, please do consider purchasing something from there. That, along with our Patreon, our patrons do help with the costs that are associated with the show. It costs to keep us on the air, produce our podcast, keep it going, and publish for your entertainment. So please do consider merchandise becoming a patron. We do appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. And last but not least, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It really helps us, helps others find our show and listen to the content that we talk about. So with that,
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery.
Cue the music.